be helpful if you would take the survey at the end of the event and let us know how we're doing. The more feedback, the better the more we're able to improve our events. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Pamela Metivier. She's the co-creator of STEAM Team 5. Currently, she works as a marketing analyst at W.L. Gore and Associates, and that she lives in Scottsdale currently with her and has a 13-year-old son. Pamela, thank you so much for being part of the festival. And this is a really interesting and important topic. And I'm looking forward to your talk.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk today. The name of this topic is the importance of non-exceptional female role models in STEM. I'd like to take a moment just to give a quick background about who I am. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. I have a 13-year-old son. We really like playing videos together and building puzzles together. I'm fortunate in that I've enjoyed a career in STEM for over 25 years. I'm currently a data analyst at Gore. And recently, in the last couple of years, I co-created a children's adventure book series called STEAM Team 5. It's about 5 young girls who use their STEM skills to do fun and amazing things. So part of this, this conversation we'll have today kind of illustrates the aspiration I had for creating this book series. 2 things I would like to talk about today are, number one, the importance of introducing very young girls to STEM role models. And the second part of that is why these role models should include non-exceptional ones. Most of us are pretty familiar with the problem in gender disparity in STEM fields. STEM fields have historically been male dominated. Although women make up almost 50% of the college educated workforce in the United States, only a quarter of those jobs are in STEM fields. And the result of this is that we are missing out on tapping into all the talent that we have available to meet the needs and solve big problems, big global problems. So, I'm particularly interested in why this is the case. So why, why is there disparity in STEM fields? And there are many theories for this, but one I would like to talk about today is one that involves using what's called the leaky pipe metaphor to explain this disparity. So this is the leaky pipe metaphor. And as you can see, the leaky pipe depicts areas at key joints where we're losing girls' interest in STEM and STEAM. And so this first part of the leaky pipe, so on the left-hand side is where we have the inflow of individuals, particularly girls here, who are interested in learning STEM and having a STEM career. So the first point of the leaky pipe is early childhood development and early childhood education. And the reason behind this is that girls typically receive less encouragement to engage in STEM activities in early childhood. The second phase, or second portion of the pipe where individual girls leak out of is during high school. So while girls enter high school, freshman year, almost 16% of girls are interested in STEM careers as freshmen. But as senior year approaches, that drops to about 13% senior year. So again, fewer girls leaving high school who are interested in STEM careers. And next we have the leak in the college years. So young women in particular entering college, and despite outperforming men in subjects like math, they're less likely to choose a STEM major or STEM degree. They're less likely to earn a STEM degree. Then upon college graduation, young women are less likely to, as I pointed out, they're less likely to emerge from college with a degree in a STEM field. And by the time they end up out of the pipeline here, as you can see in this glass, women who've made it through the pipeline, the challenge here is that they're often viewed and deemed as exceptional. So what I want to focus on today is this early childhood leak. I was particularly interested in learning what causes this leak and what we can do to change it. Some of you might be familiar with the Draw a Scientist test. It was developed in 1966 and used to analyze children's drawings in order to identify stereotypes that appear in those drawings. And in 1966, when this test was first initiated, 99% of the drawings that children would draw of a scientist were male. Okay? This study lasted for 11 years and pretty much stayed at this 99 percentile. When this test was conducted in 1983, for example, 99% of the scientists that were drawn were male. So these included scientists who were drawn by both girls and boys. And so you see here in 2016, this dropped to 73%. So 27% of the scientists being drawn are being drawn by girls in 2016. Some of them are being drawn by boys as well, but the majority were drawn by girls. So in looking at this number, comparing 1983 to 2016, this appears to show great progress, but there's an exception to that. The problem is, as kids age, they, especially girls, their tendency to draw scientists as a male increases. Girls actually start trending towards male stereotypes at 8 years old. So for example, at age 6, girls were likely to draw a male scientist 30% of the time. Okay? And by age 16, they were likely to draw a male scientist 75% of the time. What's super interesting is in kindergarten, children draw, both boys and girls, roughly draw, both of them have increasingly over time drawn more female scientists at age 6. But as both genders age, they tend to start trending towards male stereotypes. By the time they're in high schools, both male and females are 4 times more likely to draw a male scientist than a female scientist. Now, this is, of course, concerning because when girls don't see themselves as scientists, they're not likely to see their future selves in STEM careers. And this overall change between age 6 and age 16 aligns with the larger trend of women joining science-related occupations. So the key here is that girls need to see themselves in STEM fields. Both girls and boys are exposed to stereotypes about gender roles in early childhood. And sadly, this is often reinforced by parents who will typically provide boys with more exposure and more opportunities to learn and participate in STEM activities than girls. But more, what studies found is more significantly is that young children are highly affected by outside influence, such as peers, their friends, their parents, but especially media, the media that they consume, the entertainment, books, videos, films, and yes, even the internet. Just 37% of STEM professionals on TV are women or girls. Okay, so the Gina Davis Institute did a large study on this and found that by far the most significant reason for this gender disparity at around age 8 is due to the effect that consuming media has on very young girls. They don't see themselves in STEM fields, and so they self-filter. So the answer to that is young girls need to have more female role models. But I'm arguing today, and many have as well, that these female role models can't just be famous, exceptional ones. They need to be highly relatable role models. Now, what the Gina Davis Institute found in many studies was the depiction of girls in STEM really had an impact on girls' interest in entering STEM fields, but also in participating in STEM activities and even just learning STEM skills. Female STEM characters in kids' media, especially film. Books are sometimes better, but especially in film and especially TV, these young girls are depicted as socially awkward, they're quirky, they're lonely. Oftentimes they're shown working alone, having trouble making friends or feeling isolated. But most of all, they're portrayed as exceptional. So they're smarter than everyone else. And that, in my opinion, is the key problem, is that when girls are expected to be exceptional in order to participate in STEM and STEAM, those who don't perceive themselves as exceptional will self-filter. And in addition to that, girls in particular tend to be very social in nature. And these children who are depicted as gifted in STEM and STEAM often have characteristics that present them as not having those social skills and not having the ability, for example, to make friends. Over 36% of the STEM professionals shown in children's programming, TV programming, show these individuals working in jobs that are not family flexible. Okay? So there's a subtext that you can't have a family, that you can't have friends and have a career in STEM. So for all these reasons, young girls, and especially those who don't perceive themselves as exceptional, are less likely to see themselves in STEM fields. And so I really want to underscore the need for young, relatable role models in the media that young girls consume, especially very young girls. So as we talked about in the Draw a Scientist research, girls start to trend towards drawing male scientists at age 8. So those stereotypes start to kick in at a very young age. So it's very important that we introduce girls to media, especially film, TV, and books, where there are female lead characters, where those girls are young enough, those characters are young enough to attract the attention of very young girls, ages 5 to 8. So usually those role models ideally are preteen. These characters are socially engaged, they have strong relationships, they have strong friendships, they have distinctly unique personalities and interests, and they work both independently and as a team. Okay? And finally, they use their STEM skills to solve problems in a fun, creative way. So I'm going to share a few examples of these relatable role models. So these are some characters, and one in particular is a true person, but these are characters in books and media. You have the Andrea Beatty, her book series has Ada Twist Scientist, Rosie Revere. She's got a couple of different great books aimed towards younger girls that depict young girls using their STEM skills to solve problems. And they are the heroine in these books because they're solving these problems. Wangari's Trees of Peace is the story about Wangari, and she was the first African woman to win a Nobel Prize. She won the prize in 2004. She's a real person, and I included her here for a very special reason. And that is she started the Green Belt movement in Kenya in 1977. And what she did is she used the planting of trees as an entry point to organize women in Kenya and provide them with the opportunity and empowering them to earn an income through forestry, and things like beekeeping in order to escape poverty. So enable them to earn a living while at the same time preserving the land and natural resources that they had. And what's key here, in my opinion, is that this really demonstrates that though she's exceptional and won the Nobel Prize, those who participate in her program don't have to be exceptional. You don't have to be exceptional to make a difference, to learn these skills in order to earn an income and to take care of your families. And so I wanted to include that as an example. There are a couple of other examples here for very young kids. We have Doc McStuffins, and she's been around for a long time. Many parents on this call might be familiar with her, but she's a great role model for very small young girls. And then we have Project MC Squared and Michaela down on the lower left here, and she hosts videos where she demonstrates the use of STEM and STEAM skills through experiments and so forth that are highly relatable to young girls. And that's the key here again, is the depiction of these skills as non-exceptional is critically important in order for girls to feel less intimidated about participating in STEM and activities. And then on the far right, you have the book series that I co-created. Our goal here was to make these female characters independently huge contributors to the STEM field, but in working together, they almost adopt the superpower kind of capabilities. So they can work independently and as a team. And they use common everyday STEM skills to go on adventures and solve problems. Some examples in video and tech. You have Nihao Kailan, who so hopefully many parents are familiar with Kailan. I know in our household she was a major role model and figure during my son's developmental preschool years. But this is an example of tech featuring a young role model who's relatable and provides kids with an opportunity to develop some computer software skills through leapfrog games. And on the right, you'll see SciGirls. And this is a program started by PBS in 2010, and it features a lot of young girls, real girls, who talk about and demonstrate their STEM skills, and they use them to do not just experiments, but a lot of different fun activities. And there are many different individual girls who comprise SciGirls, which is great because any young girl can find one of them who shares attributes and is highly relatable to them. Another point I want to make is the importance of making STEM skills relatable, not exceptional. So I've provided some examples here to demonstrate that. A lot of times when you talk about technology, especially in the framework of STEM, people assume you're talking about computer science and electronics, but really technology is just a skill that enables you to solve a problem where there's a need and a problem to be solved. So in this example here, Trika has developed an algorithm to help her make clothing decisions quicker on school days. So yes, this is technology, even though it's paper-based. And yes, she really likes black t-shirts. In the middle here, you see Maddie, who is using math to plan a slumber party. So she wants to make sure that her tent is large enough to fit all of her friends. So she's using her math skills to determine that. And then on the right-hand side here, you see Evelyn using her engineering skills to build the Treat Machine 2000. And so she has repurposed her toy from earlier childhood, her Jack-in-the-Box toy, to create the treat machine to train her dog. Now, again, we talk about relatable role models. I touched on this a few moments ago, but the SciGirls, and you can access this online, PBS SciGirls. And as you can see here, and after you watch a few of these videos, you'll learn that each of these girls has a distinct personality. They're truly unique. And though you may say, okay, these are very smart girls, and some of them are very smart girls, they're everyday girls as well. So they're not just famous, exceptional girls. And by demonstrating not just a few different role models, but the fact that there are so many girls just like them using their STEM skills every day, it really underscores that it's not exceptional to have STEM skills. And girls who identify with these role models, with other girls who are have STEM skills, are far less likely to self-filter, especially at that critical age of 8 years old, in those critical early development, those early STEM skill development years. Another point I want to make is that every one of us knows a woman in a STEM field, even if you don't think you do. The STEM fields are very broad. We're not just talking about doctors. We're talking about, science, technology, engineering, math. There are so many different types of STEM careers, and each of us knows at least one person in our inner circle who is in a career like that we can introduce our young girls to. And by introducing young girls to role models that individuals they already know who are participating and actively working in a STEM field, it really helps to address stereotypes, not just about gender, but stereotypes about what STEM is. And teachers in particular make great STEM role models. So while there's plenty of room, as you can see here, for more female superheroes, you don't have to be a superhero to learn STEM skills and use them in the career of your choice. So that is the end of my presentation. I finished a couple minutes early, but I'm hoping there are some questions that we can answer now.
Pamela, that was great. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Absolutely.
If you want, you can turn off the sharing of the screen.
Okay.
I've got a couple questions already.
All right, great.
My daughter's in here watching with me, and I think you enjoyed yourself. Did you think it? You like it? Yeah, it's tough to so, nice job.
Thank you.
So here's my first question for you. Teachers,
Yes.
do to provide STEM role models. I mean, you already pointed out that teachers themselves are good STEM role models.
Yes.
You're a teacher in a class, and you're used to just bringing in engineers, and they say, look how great these engineers are, and they're going to talk to you. Could they be doing something differently to help students be exposed to career paths or people that they could emulate?
Yes, absolutely. I think there are a couple of different ways, aside from having guest speakers come in and talk about their careers and what encouraged them to enter into their STEM fields. I think the key is, again, is to focus on making it as relatable as possible. So point out when kids are playing even that what STEM skills they're using in that play. And a lot of kids use STEM skills, but they're not familiar with what they are. For example, a child who poses a question, you can explain to him, well, that's actually a hypothesis. And here's how you test your hypothesis. And once they do that, you can point out, hey, you just did science. You're a scientist. You just formed the hypothesis and you use data to answer your question. Okay? But some other ways that teachers can encourage young kids to embrace STEM is, especially girls, is by offering after-school programs that are geared towards young girls and that are STEM activities, that involve STEM activities, right? That's a biggie. And also, I would say, finally, making sure that teachers of really young children, first grade, second grade, kindergarten, are introducing integrated STEM subjects early. Okay, so we're going to do this exercise and we're going to use a combination of your science and your math skills to do this exercise or do this activity. So I think introducing activities, guiding them in those activities, enabling them, giving them opportunities, direct opportunities to participate in STEM activities is a hugely useful things for teachers.
Excellent, thank you. Just so you know, we're starting to get some questions in.
Okay.
Want to make sure people know that if they're having trouble watching the video and asking questions at the same time, they're watching a video on their computer, pull up your phone, pull up the website, and you can type in the message box. Just put your first name, where you're watching from, and your question. So I'm going to read a question from AJ, who has messages from Chandler. Thank you for.
Okay.
It says, great presentation. All your positive media examples seem to have only girl characters and be marketed to girls only. It's a great first step, but we also need girl characters in media for mixed audience. So my sons can see female heroes using STEM skills too.
Absolutely. So I'm assuming the question is around the role of boys and those raising boys. And I get this question a lot, right? And as a mother of a son, I've thought about this a lot. What is my role in raising a son and ensuring that we address gender disparity, and not just to help girls, but to help boys as well, right? To provide positive female role models for boys. And I think one of the biggest ways to reinforce reinforce the importance of girls in STEM is to teach both boys and girls that you don't have to be extra smart. You don't have to be exceptional to be interested in STEM and STEAM. Okay, we really need to reinforce that with both genders, that they don't have to be exceptional. And we need to prepare our sons, to AJ's point, we need to prepare our sons to expect to see girls participating in the STEM activities that the boys are also participating in throughout their entire lifetime, not just at school, but in careers at the conference room table, for example. But I would say that in terms of marketing to girls only, I would say that just because a book has or a film has a girl as a leading role, that doesn't mean that she can't be a role model for boys as well. Okay, when you look past gender and look at the characteristics of that hero of the story, and understand the value that their STEM skills are providing them in establishing them as a role model, I think is important. And in terms of marketing to boys, it's really kids, especially young kids, a lot of them don't even notice that the gender, especially today, don't even notice the gender of the characters in books and movies until it's pointed out to them. So I think by introducing boys to films and other media where girls are the primary character, you're really addressing the boys' needs as well. Hopefully I answered the right question there.
So let me ask my daughter something.
Okay.
When you read a book, do you think about the gender of the main character? That's good. I think she's showing your point there. We do have a couple of questions that have come in. One thing I'm going to do a little segue to is that our keynote last night, which everyone's able to watch if you missed it, it's right on our website. Krista Sadler, who's a Flagstaff paleontologist, scientist, river guide, really interesting person, she said there's only really one thing you need to be successful in science, and it's curiosity.
I was going to say that, yeah.
You're just talking about what do they want to see, and I would love to see, instead of people focusing on book smarts, those who are just curious and willing to explore and have the confidence to do so. So I'm going to go back to the questions. We have one from Sharon from Flagstaff. She says, I appreciated the good examples of media. Any warnings about media examples of women in STEM or girls in STEM that contain negative stereotypes or are counterproductive? And I know you and I have had some conversations about these already.
Yeah.
I love Harry Potter, but I've got some opinions on Hermione. But I'm going to let you answer instead of voicing my opinion.
Yeah, I think we probably share those same concerns. And well, there's a Hermione from the books and there's a Hermione in the films. And it's really interesting, the differences between the two. But, you know, her character is great in many ways, right? She's independent, she's self-assured, she doesn't seek out external validation, but she's also presented as bossy, right? She's never wrong. She's stubborn, but particularly in the films, she's almost presented as perfect. She doesn't make mistakes, and I think we have to be really careful about that. That making mistakes is actually part of science, right? Proving or disproving a hypothesis. It's okay to be wrong. It's encouraged to test out things and be incorrect. And so I would say that, you know, presenting any girl who's successful or accomplished as a know-it-all or as perfect is really detrimental, right? Boys don't face that same kind of requirement in their characters. Their characters are more likely to have flaws, and those flaws are accepted, where girls, the expectation seems to be a bit higher.
Hey everyone, I'm Virginia. I've been hiding out behind the scenes working on questions, but I just wanted to pop in. Pamela, thank you so much. I almost kind of want to pause and like just hit home again, that reframing around, because there's a female lead character, it's somehow not for boys. And I really challenge all of us to really take a step back. Can you imagine Bugs Bunny's not marketed for girls because he's a boy? It's so ingrained and it's so insidious. A just incredible point to take home with us today. But with that, I also had a question for you. As you're pointing out all the role models that we can take our children to see, the most important role model is the parents, the caregivers, yes, the aunts, the grandmothers. I'm wondering if you have advice for all those women who feel like in their own life they fell through that pipeline and they're not feeling confident or comfortable around their science. How do they be the role model they want to be for the young girls in their life?
That's a fantastic question, because I read a study that was conducted on young girls and their likelihood of entering into math and science fields, or actually just taking courses in math and science. And there was a direct correlation between the mother's attitude about her daughter's ability to succeed in math and science, and girls of all ages actually going into those studies. So parents, and in particular, they pointed out, mothers, our attitudes towards math and science really impact our children. You know, I would say, and I know that I have worked my way through the pipeline. I've seen peers, quite competent peers, leave the pipeline because they felt that they couldn't be an A student. They couldn't be exceptional. And I think, to your point, the roles of teachers, parents, aunts, uncles, and inner circles, it's so critically important that you encourage kids to embrace these skills for any career they want to go into. Okay, so that they don't deem those skills as unattainable.
Pamela, I got a later question for you, and we have a question from David I'll get to soon. Okay. I've been an engineer for 20 years. And one of the things that I see commonly, women, when they come out of college, within a few years, they aren't doing technical work anymore. They might be as technically competent or more than their peers, but they're going into management, they're going into more interpersonal skills type of work, or they might drop out and create a nonprofit. Very rare to see a woman my age in engineering that's still highly technical. And I don't really know how to tackle or even bring up that subject, though I did on live video stream. But if you're someone like me and you're mentoring someone that's in their 30s that is on the technical track, are there things that we could do to help keep them technical if that's the way they want to go?
Yeah, that's another great question, because, you know, I think what you find is people need to see other people like them in their environment, and they want to see all of their skills perceived as valuable, not just their technical skills, right? So it's important to them to not just demonstrate, but to tap into skills, the human side, the social side of their career. And you see a lot of women actually go into education because they feel a need that they want to use their skills for more than execution. They want to teach, they want to engage, they want to contribute in a number of different ways. And so I think as long as if we provide opportunities for them to contribute beyond their technical skills, then we'll keep them in those technical roles, right? But I think the goal should be to find ways to broaden what those roles are, what those roles look like, what they entail, so that they're able to satisfy those other needs that they have.
That's really enlightening. Thank you. I hadn't thought of that way. I thought it was kind of a binary choice, and I didn't think about the idea that by adding in opportunities to their current roles to meet the things that they're looking for, that they can get both.
Right.
Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
We have a couple other questions, at least. We'll probably go at most another 15 minutes. David has a bit of a different question here than necessarily women and girls in STEM. He talks about public schools. I'll just read it. Public schools are no longer building real labs for students and just having them use free online programs for science. I'm going to just kind of ignore the COVID reality we're in now. I'm going to just talking about a larger trend in school. Few field trips or hands-on labs with chemicals and actual tools like microscopes and live samples. And he's saying that online is not the same for learning science. He wants to know your opinion on building real labs and doing actual experiments in the real world.
Yeah, I agree that that's a concern. Hands-on activities are critically important, especially for younger kids, right? And that's really where we need to engage, is the younger, the better. So, you know, trying to, we've all been doing a bit of online learning lately, and we can see, I'm sure everyone has experienced, it is very difficult to keep young kids engaged. It's difficult to keep anyone engaged, but it's particularly difficult to keep young children engaged. And the best way to do that is to actually let them get their hands dirty, right? Let them participate. And then the second part of that is that the social interaction is so important, right? Learning from your peers is so important. And so you miss that if you're participating in a one-on-one through online learning. And so I think there are many reasons why we need to put real labs back in community classrooms for kids to experience this. And I would argue that the younger, the better.
So I have a question from Josie. I'm going to sum up some of the stuff I've already heard, though.
Okay.
Something about non-exceptional would be that we want the characters to be imperfect. And you want the characters, potentially it could be a boy or a girl or a man or a woman who have some of those same character traits. Not exactly, it could be tuned because men and women aren't the same by any means. But it could, if it's a mathematician who solves problems and really likes dogs, why can't it be a man? Why can't it be a woman? They can solve crimes. It can be anything. So when a girl like my daughter is reading or watching, they can see themselves in that. They don't see someone who's amazing and perfect, and they say to themselves, well, is that me? Using Harry Potter example, Ron and Harry are far from perfect, and they really struggle with a lot of emotional issues. They never really see Hermione do the same.
Right.
And it's not fair to criticize something that's over 20 years old. Let's be fair on this. That was written a long time ago, and it was a different culture.
But it's still popular is the thing, right? All kids still read Harry Potter.
And still an excellent book. We love it.
Yeah. It's an excellent book, yes.
Okay. Is there anything you want to add to that before I ask Josie's question?
No, I just kind of want to underscore where you were going a bit with the ability to be in a STEM field or have STEM skills without being perfect, right? And that's a Hermione problem, is that she's not allowed to be imperfect, right? Her character relies on her being perfect, where the boys are more relatable because they're allowed to make mistakes.
Yeah. Okay, it's a question from Josie. I think this is a really good one. We may end up summing up the event with this. Do you have curriculum, or I'll broaden it, other recommendations for teaching young girls that they do not have to be exceptional?
You mean curriculum for individuals who want to teach young girls, or
Yeah.
curriculum for young girls?
It says, do you have curriculum for teaching young girls?
I do not. I assume there is curriculum available, but I would say really it's all kind of boils down to making STEM relatable for young girls. So, put yourself in the shoes of a 6-year-old and how to make those topics relatable to her. And so, I don't have curriculum per se, but I would just say that I'm not sure that it requires curriculum to make those kind of adjustments.
So Virginia reminded me of a conversation that you and I had just before, and we had talked about, excuse me if you can hear the dog drinking her water bottle. That's part of science, live events.
That's right. That's right.
This isn't merely an issue. I mean, this isn't limited to girls and women in STEM. This is a general overall problem of minorities or anyone who doesn't commonly get exposed to successful people in STEM fields where they can end up. I've had lucky enough, I'm Jewish, and Happy New Year to all my Jewish brethren. Shana Tova. And many famous scientists and many successful engineers and others around me, that it's easy to see myself growing into that role and assuming when I got older, that type of position. But for those who don't, do the same things that you're talking about, do those impact them differently? Is the same recommendations, or is it any different for a kid that's living on the reservation that is dreaming about being a pilot in the Navy?
Yeah, I think the same still applies, right? Help to find relatable role models who look like them, who share their characteristics, who share their interests, right? Relatable characters is the key. And in particular, I would say underscoring, because when you add that additional layer of dealing with diversity beyond gender diversity, it becomes even increasingly more important to underscore that you don't have to be exceptional. Okay, you're not competing for that 1%. Okay, you have the ability to do this and to perform these skills innately. And people who look like you and people who share your beliefs or your cultural background have these same skills. Here are some examples, and actively seek out examples that they can relate to. And kids will relate to them on many different levels, right? beyond race and culture, right? Find just relatable role models. And I think that just applies to all kids.
I think that's a great place to end. I want to thank Virginia for bringing the questions up. It's easy to be asked.
Yes, thank you.
Conversation. I want to thank Morgan Boatman and Paul Rosa, who have been instrumental in enabling the festival to do this online content and actually have a festival this year. So thank you guys. Thank you behind the scenes, and just want to say a big thank you.
Yes,
And remind everyone that we have many events coming up. This is a full 10-day festival. We're only the second day in. There are events you do in person. There's events that you can just download and do at home. If you want to watch this again because you came up with some great questions or you wanted to think about what Pamela had presented, you can do that as well. And Virginia is consistent in reminding me the things we're talking about. There is a survey that is on the website that is easy to take, about 2 minutes. It'd be really helpful for us to understand how we can improve our content and keep providing great science activities for all. So thank you, and I hope to see you at future events.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk.